Hey guys, MadMickey13 here, and since the break has been pretty eventful and I haven't been able to get many high quality videos out, I figured I'd just make a quick one and done making a tier list of every video Epic Rap Battles of History has posted. The tiers go S, which is the best of their best. You'll be seeing a lot more of these be in here as we go on. A tier would be amazing, but there's just one small thing holding it back. B tier is alright, C tier is a little bad, D tier is kind of either forgettable or just not that great. F tier is the oh my god, what were they thinking? And then I have the never heard it or haven't heard it in a while, because I don't think it's fair for me to rank something that I haven't listened to. Before I go any further, you know the deal, like and subscribe. I'd like to hit 300 subs by, I don't know, March, so that'd be cool. Thank you. And starting off is John Lennon versus Bill O'Reilly, which is going straight in the I haven't heard it. I've heard it's not good, and it's just something I've never taken the time to go and look at. Vader versus the guy whose name I can't say in case this video ever ends up getting monetized, which I don't know if it will. I'm not sure how the algorithm works. I always feel like this one was a little overrated. It's good, but I think B tier at the highest. Sorry if you hear yelling in the background. My sister brought her boyfriend over for Christmas, and they tend to be a little noisy. Abe Lincoln versus Chuck Norris. It's mostly just Chuck Norris jokes, which I was expecting going into it. And it's okay. I think C tier fits it. The infamous one, Sarah Palin versus Lady Gaga. It's not as bad as people make it out to be. I don't think it's their worst, but it's still pretty bad. Ben Franklin versus Billy Mays. I only listened to this one yesterday, and it was alright. Haven't heard this one, Dumbledore versus Gandalf. Alright, Shakespeare versus Seuss. It's really, really good up until Things 1 and 2, so I think because Things 1 and 2 existed, I can only put this in A tier. Mr. T versus Mr. Rogers. Ignore that. Oh my god. I hate this. Stupid wins are bad. I'm sorry about that. It will not let me delete it. Alright. Mr. T versus Mr. Rogers. This is amazing. This one's amazing. Just that final line alone would put this thing in B tier. Captain Kirk versus Christopher Columbus. I actually kind of like this one. Kirk talking, of course, gives it some points because I hear a lot of people say it detracts from the battle, but personally I just think it makes it funnier. And Columbus's first line of just like leaving for a little bit caught me off guard. It was pretty funny. Have not heard this one. I haven't heard a lot of season 1. This Justin Bieber versus Beethoven, right? I have heard a little bit of this. I'm going to put it in C tier just for the White Usher line, because that line actually got me. Einstein versus Hawking. I think this was... I'm pretty sure this battle came before T versus Rogers, because a lot of these are out of order. I had to organize them into what I believe were proper season order. But I think this was the battle where they really started knowing what they were doing, and I believe it is Zach Sherwin's first performance, which of course makes it a lot better because Sherwin is probably one of the best rappers they've had on the channel. Khan versus Easter Bunny. Yeah, we don't talk about that one. Napoleon versus Napoleon. Haven't heard it in a while, but I remember it just being okay. And as for Peter versus Lloyd 1, I mean, it had the thumb line, so it has to go in A tier. Vader versus Man Who I Will Not Say the Name of Part 2. This is the one I really like. And I think it's general consensus that this is the best of the trilogy. Adam versus Eve. Yes, I get it. The line, like, the lyrics of this battle suck. But I will say the instrumental saves it from being an F or D and just going to low C tier. I'm going to organize some of these because I think... this is better. It's Doc Brown versus Doctor Who. I really enjoy this one. I can't tell you why I like it so much. I just do. Master Chief versus Leonidas. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. I haven't heard it. Cleopatra versus Marilyn Monroe. Again, general consensus is this is just a pretty mid battle with one good line. So I think B2 is the highest. B. Clint Eastwood versus Bruce Lee is a battle that could not have been made today because, oh my god, Clint has some of the most racist lines I have ever heard in one of these. This isn't even a battle, it's just an execution, but like the amount of times my jaw was on the floor hearing this the first time, this needs to be put in A tier. Tesla versus Edison, have not heard. Steve Jobs versus Bill Gates, this one, I mean, it has to go in S tier. Again, why do pop-ups only show up when I'm trying to record? This used to be my favorite. So, it back and forth. The instrumental is fire. The HAL 9000 was freaking amazing. Just all around great battle. Probably my favorite of season 2. Yeah. Sherlock Holmes was good, but Batman is like the most infamous crappy rapper that they've had, to the point where they've even made fun of it, like of Peter's portrayal of him in one of the other ones, which we will get to. Presley versus Jackson I think it's high A tier. I hear a lot of people say they like this, but I think I've just listened to it too much to where I just don't like hearing it anymore. Gandhi versus MLK, which is the first of 2 battles with Key and Peele in it, and I think they do a really great job. Santa versus Moses. I think Snoop Dogg alone puts this in A tier. I haven't heard it in a while, but just for the fact they got Snoop Dogg in it, really good. Obama versus Romney, first political one. I think this is probably their best. Because I think a lot of the presidential ones tend to be one-sided, but I think this is the one where it was hardest to feel it. So I'll go low S tier because I like it. And by the way, this is their most viewed battle, so you know it's good. Armstrong versus Babe Ruth. Haven't heard it in a while, but I remember it being pretty good. I remember Ruth's second verse the most, and being really good, so low A tier. Sinatra versus Mercury. Guys, I really don't like this one. I feel like it's a little too one-sided trying to glorify Mercury, and they kind of made Sinatra into a douchebag for it. Like, I don't know. I get that's kind of the point, but I still just didn't like it. Mozart versus Skrillex. Have not heard this at all. Sorry for the win. I have tried to delete the app multiple times and it just won't. Mario Brothers versus the Wright Brothers, this is Rhett and Link's first performance, and I think that they're the only guests, or like the only rappers in general, that I believe won every single one that they were in. This one, it's alright. I'm gonna go low B tier. I don't know what that's doing in Season 2. And last for Season 2, we have the Russian battle. What just happened? Bring this down. This would be S tier, except for the fact that I mostly listen to these on Spotify, and since I'm a broke pleb, I have to sit through that last minute and a half of instrumental. And while it's good, it is pretty repetitive and it gets annoying fast. So I think mid A tier is the best I can do. Vader vs. 3, I think it's alright. Blackbeard versus Al Capone is really good. I can't think of any major problems with this, other than the fact that it's just kind of forgettable. Like, I remembered that it existed, like, right when I opened this up. But then I remember how good it was, and I'm trying to think of a single line in this that fumbles. But it doesn't do anything super, super stellar either, so A tier. Oh boy, Superman versus Goku. It's good, and then the final line happens, and then it's really good, but I don't think that final line puts it in S tier. Spoiler alert, without actually spoiling it, Goku drops probably one of the hardest lines in the entire series. Go listen to it for yourself if you haven't already. I'll go high A tier. Walter White versus Rick Grimes, I believe, is pretty overrated. Um, I don't know why. It's just Rick's voice annoys me in this, and Walter has some good lines. B tier. Miley Cyrus versus, I believe, Joan of Arc. Have not listened. Michael Jordan versus Muhammad Ali. It's the other Key and Peele one. It's okay. I heard people say it's the best of season 3, which I just personally disagree with. Because my personal favorite from season 3 is Edgar Allan Poe versus Stephen King. It's freaking amazing. Sherwin is awesome. Watsky's amazing. It's two of the best people to have ever been on this series, and you expect it not to be amazing. My brain is just breaking down right now. Bill Nye versus Isaac Newton. Weird Al is in this, and for that alone, it gets S tier. And honestly, it's pretty good. This is one of the first ones of season 3 I remember watching, and I remember liking it a lot. Ross versus Picasso, I've only heard the part where Picasso says his full name, and for that, A tier. Scrooge versus Trump is another one I just listened to yesterday, and I thought it was alright. I think this might be the weakest of the free-for-all battles, but it's not bad. George Washington versus William Wallace, literally never heard it. Artist versus Turtles will go down in history as the most overrated one in the series. Aside from the first verse, it's just not good. Moving on to season 4, Ghostbusters versus Mythbusters. I haven't heard in like a long time, but I do remember some of the lines, and I think B tier fits it well. Romeo and Juliet versus Bonnie and Clyde. I think Juliet carries this. She was the best. Then Bonnie and Clyde were probably the best group, and then Romeo was just kind of there, but A tier. It's enjoyable. Have not heard this one in a while, but I remember Lewis and Clark, their lines were great. Shaka Zulu versus Julius Caesar. I think S tier. Like, this, I think Peter, like, nailed Caesar and his lines. And I think this is one of the few battles where, despite Shaka Zulu losing, it was close. It could have been either. Houdini versus Copperfield. It's alright. Ooh, the Philosopher's Battle. This is one I can just come back to, and no matter how long it's been since I've heard it, the lyrics are just engraved into my memory. Highest tier. It's amazing. Oprah Winfrey versus Ellen. Not that great. Hannibal Lecter versus Jack the Ripper. Dan Bull is a top 3 rapper for this channel, and he did amazing here. I think high tier. I think it's a shame that Dan Bull lost both of his, because he was really, really good. RoboCop versus Terminator. Never seen it. Okay, the producer battle. I think this might be my favorite of the 5-person battles. I think there isn't a single miss. Yeah, Michael Bay's is obviously bad, but then again, so are his movies, so it works out. Zeus versus Thor. It's their first of 2 Lego animation ones, and I think the only lines I can remember for this are the "Swallow My Babies" and the "Grease's GDP" line. So I think high B tier fits. Stan Lee versus Jim Henson. Walt Disney hard carries this. I'm not going to put it as the best, but it's great because, again, Zach Sherman knows what he's doing. Deadpool versus Boba Fett. I have not heard much of it, but from the clips I've heard, I think I'm going to go B tier. Honestly, I'm going to get rid of the haven't heard in a while, because at this point, if I haven't heard it in a while, it's just the stuff I remember. Tolkien versus Martin. This is, I think, my second favorite of season 5. And I think it's my favorite season premiere. I think both characters are amazing. I believe with the exception of Gates versus Jobs, It's their first battle to have more than just two verses. So it's a style that they were experimenting with, and I thought it was good. Ramsey versus Child. It's all right. I like the voice they did for Child. I didn't even know who Julia Child was until I heard this song. So I don't know if that's what she really does sound like, because I know a lot of these videos tend to not get the impression right. But it was good. Ooh, this one. Douglas versus Jefferson. I am annoyed beyond comprehension that they gave one of the most evil people in history, two of the most evil people. Actually, they've given a lot of evil people a chance to actually win in this. Holy crap. But they won't even give Thomas Jefferson the chance to actually win without him going into apology mode. And for that, I think I have to put this in C. No, because Douglas was really good. So, B tier. Bond v. Powers. This has my favorite instrumental in any ERB. The fact that it goes between. So the way it works is, Craig Bond, Connery Bond, and Austin Powers each have their own instrumental, and it'll just perfectly transition into whoever's rapping, and it's amazing. Go listen to it for yourself. Peter and Lloyd have been uploading instrumentals of previous battles, and I really hope they do one for this, because, oh my god, it's just perfect. Bruce Banner versus Bruce Jenner. This, I think, has the most amount of dislikes any battle on their channel has had. And personally, I don't get it. It's not good. Yeah, Caitlyn Jenner's final verse was garbage, but everything up until that was really good. I'm going to put this in B tier. Probably the hottest take I'm going to have in this video. Oh, no, here's my hottest take. This one's... I know everyone's going to want to put this in S tier. And yeah, Frederick the Great and Alexander the Great were both really good, but everything else was just kind of forgettable, so I'm going to put this in high A tier. Ash Ketchum versus Charles Darwin. Okay. I'm trying to think about where I should put this, because both of these guys murdered each other with their final lines. I'm going to, again, put this in high A tier. Stevie Wonder versus Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was alright. Stevie Wonder was awesome. Low A tier. Trump versus Clinton. This was the first political one I saw, and I loved it. I wouldn't say it's as good as Obama versus Romney, especially with the one-sidedness of the ending, but A tier. I love how they tried to make Trump out to be a villain, and yet everyone says he won. Hawk versus Gretzky. This is their lowest viewed battle. Season 5 was just not a good time for this show. Honestly, I don't hate it. I think the animation in the backgrounds was a lot higher quality for Season 5, and I know a lot of people said they didn't like it. For me, it was more hit or miss, but I think this one really nailed it. I'm going to put this in the highest A tier. Hey guys, watch this. Try to be unsurprised. Yeah, this was amazing. I think for a while, Gates versus Jobs passed it, but then I developed common sense. I think it's hard to get better than this. This is the one battle that truly lived up to the name Epic Rap Battles of History. Everyone I've talked to who never watches ERB says, why was it Teddy Roosevelt? It should have been FDR, which I get, but at the same time, I think ERB is well known for doing one historical figure and then another one which you wouldn't expect it to be. Like Isaac Newton versus Bill Nye, you'd think it would just be a different scientist that was well known. I'm trying to think of another good example for this. I don't know, maybe one will come to me later, but Roosevelt has some of the best lines in the series, and again, with Churchill, Dan Bull even carries his weight, and people say Churchill wasn't that good, but I think that was just them comparing it to Roosevelt. If you compare it to a lot of the other stuff in the series, it's really, really good. Peter versus Lloyd 2. Okay, this was a fun transition from the first one, making fun of each other's appearances, to straight up calling each other out for being manipulative and an alcoholic. And yeah, I think that this is probably the most personal battle, which makes sense, and it was the battle that would announce they were to go on hiatus. And I think the brutal lines really are what make it better than the first one. We're officially moving into season 6 with Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg. If there was ever to be a battle that would need a sequel more than this one, I'd be shocked, because these two have screwed up so much since the start of season 6 that they could make a whole separate battle about this. As for this battle alone, the CEO you got fired lives in my head rent free. Kruger versus Wolverine. This was their last battle to have the high quality backgrounds, and I think it was a fair send off. Also, the lines of, like, at least R. Kelly could sing, claws like a strap on, make this one a fairly enjoyable battle. Che Guevara versus Guy Fawkes. This was the battle that introduced me to who Guy Fawkes was and the whole 5th of November thing. And I think, and this was my most listened to battle of 2023. And one, I'm surprised it wasn't Jobs v. Gates. 2, I understand why. It's really good. Ronald McDonald versus Burger King. Okay, this was a battle that was developed from one of their flash in the pan ones. And because of that, I think I knew what a lot of the lines were going to be, which kind of detracted from it. But I'd say it was still good. Carlin versus Pryor. I really liked this when I first heard it, and my opinion of it has gone down, but I still think it's really, really good. I think the only weak part is obviously Cosby coming out and, like, slowing everything to a crawl. But then Joan Rivers comes out and absolutely roasts the living crap out of everybody. Williams' performance is a little overrated. I don't think he won, as a lot of people tend to say, but it wasn't terrible. I'd still stand by this being pretty good. Jacques Cousteau versus Steve Irwin. Ooh, boy. And I think in my first 4 months of listening to ERB, this was my favorite. Just because of, like, the franticness of it all. Like, Jacques Cousteau's first verse was okay, but the moment Steve Irwin steps on stage and just starts hammering him with some of, like, the catchiest lyrics I've heard, put this as my number one. Also, it was the one I started listening to the most when my channel started exploding, and I don't know what those two things have to do with each other, but it was a happy memory nonetheless for listening to this. Teresa versus Freud. For the instrumental alone, this goes in low S tier. For the lyrics, I gotta move it up to mid S tier. Go listen to this. You will not be disappointed. Vlad the Impaler versus Dracula. What do I want to do with this? Because it's really one-sided. Dracula sucked, but Vlad's were great. A theory I had heard, and I don't know if this is a theory as much as it is fact, is that Peter and Lloyd allowed patrons to write lyrics for some of their battles in Season 6, and I think this is where it showed. I'm going to put this in low C tier. Joker versus Pennywise. This one's amazing. I think this is the one I hear people go back and forth on the most about who won, because Pennywise had the lines like, no one's dying to play a Joker, at least except for maybe Heath Ledger. Joker had the little more PG, a lot less 13, and the Ask Robin if I Drop Bars. They all had amazing ones. Thanos versus Oppenheimer. Okay. S tier if it weren't for Thanos' second verse. I gotta put this on high A tier just for the Fortnite's dopest dancer line. Everything else about it is amazing. Biden versus Trump. This is the only presidential rap to not have Abraham Lincoln guest star, which kind of seems disappointing, but Abe Lincoln's appearances only got worse between the first and the second. So I'm kind of, and it gives this battle more time for them to take shots at each other. I do not believe a lot of people like Biden's when they killed Jeffrey Epstein line, but I think he only had that and one other good line, and Trump had a lot better lines, so I would say he won. But as for a battle overall, we'll go low S tier. Luke versus Harry Potter. This is another one where people go back and forth on who they think won. I like the animation of it. The style is great. Dave from Boy in the Band actually plays Harry Potter, which I didn't know about till recently. And I'd say S tier. Now we move into season 7 with I don't even remember who this guy is versus Richard the Lionheart. Haven't listened to it. Jeff Bezos versus Mansa Musa was actually the first battle I listened to, and therefore kind of has some nostalgia value, I guess, even though it was like a little more than a year ago. Low S tier. Okay, McClane versus Wick versus Rambo. I'd say this is one of Sherwin's weaker performances. I think his performance as John Wick tends to be a little run on. The ending I really like. I'll go high A tier. Croft versus Jones. It's alright. I'd say high A tier. Then their most recent, Henry Ford versus Karl Marx. I am in the minority that believes that Henry Ford won this, and I am in the majority that believes it is the best of season 7. I'm gonna put it in top 4 because, oh my god, this has, I know I've been saying this a lot, but it has some really, really good lines. And I'll say it, if Henry Ford were to rap second in his "If you saved a penny for each daughter you named Jenny, you might not have needed to bury quite so many," was the final line of the song, people would be saying Ford won. I think I could make a whole video talking about what makes a winner for an ERB, but that'll have to be for another day. So here is my rankings. As you can see, I really like ERB. They were my second most listened to artist of last year. Like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.